Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, well, we're tackling the big one, the huge conclusion to Squid Game. Season 3 just dropped June 27th. And we've really dug into everything, the reviews, what you folks are saying online, even some production details. Our goal here, cut through all that noise, find those key insights, those aha moments, give you what you need to really get this final chapter.
Yeah, and I think what's immediately striking looking at all this is, okay, the games are still a big part of it, obviously, but there's a real pivot this season in focus, in tone. It's definitely got people talking. You might actually be surprised by what's really driving the story this time around.
Okay, so let's lay out the basics first. It hit Netflix June 27th, 2025, 6 episodes, and creator Hong Dong-hyuk directed them all again.
Right. And crucially, the people anchoring this whole thing are back. Lee Jong-jae as Gi-hun, obviously. His journey, wow. And Lee Byung-hun as the front man. We get more of him. Plus, you've got that strong ensemble returning. Wi Ha-jeon, Park Gi-young, Jo Yuri, Kang I-sim, Im Si-won. They're all key. So for anyone like you who's followed this story, seeing these faces back to wrap it all up, it feels important. It feels weighty.
That strong cast is definitely needed because, like you said, there's a shift. Pretty much everything we looked at points away from just like pure shock value. It seems to lean much more into the emotional stuff, the moral questions, the psychology of it all.
It's a really significant shift, yeah. Thematically, it gets quite deep. We're talking grief, atonement, and yeah, that societal critique is sharper than ever. You see Gi-hun wrestling with immense survivor guilt, for instance, and this whole idea of moral ambiguity. It keeps coming up, like that line, "It's not your fault," haunting. It also really digs into the dehumanizing effect of thinking in extremes, that polarized view. That's where it goes beyond just a survival thriller. It's digging into character, into society.
That is a big pivot. Did you get a sense from the sources? Did this maybe risk losing some viewers, the ones who maybe loved season 1 for that raw, visceral intensity? Did it get maybe too introspective for some tastes?
Oh, absolutely. That's clear in the reactions, which, yeah, we'll definitely get into later. It's very split. A lot of critics and a good chunk of viewers really praised the depth, saw it as, a mature evolution. But yeah, for others, they definitely missed that season 1 feeling, that intensity. It feels like a deliberate choice by Hwang, for sure. But yeah, it definitely divided people.
Interesting. So how did that change in tone play out in the actual games? Because let's face it, the new games are always a huge draw. We won't spoil everything, obviously, but the sources do confirm some brutal new takes on old classics, like hide and seek, but with deadly consequences, a lethal jump rope game, and apparently a really chilling final game, where contestants actually have to vote on who lives and who dies.
And what's really telling about those games, especially reading some of the production notes, they weren't just about the spectacle this time. That final vote, for example, it seems specifically designed to force these characters into impossible moral corners, really push them up against the season's big themes like accountability, complicity. It's less about the big visual, maybe, and more about the psychological pressure.
Right, that makes sense, evolving the concept. And it's not just the arena, is it? There are those other storylines running alongside.
Exactly. The scope gets wider. You've still got Detective Junho, Wi Ha-jeon's character. He's still out there hunting around the island, trying to figure out the whole organization. And then there's Guard Kang No-eul, played by Park Ga-young. She's having her own crisis of conscience, being part of it all. Those parallel stories add a lot of context, showing the ripple effects, ties back to that broader critique.
And performance-wise, Lee Jong-jae as Gi-hun, sounds like he really carries it. Sources describe it as just a powerful, raw, kind of wounded performance. You really feel his struggle.
Oh, absolutely. His name comes up again and again as a highlight. Just phenomenal work. But the supporting cast gets a lot of praise, too, for their depth and authenticity, new faces and returning ones, like Jo Yuri as Jun-hee, apparently very impactful, Kang I-sim as the grandmother figure, Park Sung-hoon as Hyun-ju. These aren't just side characters. They really help make those heavier themes land, make them feel human. They pull you into that emotional core.
And visually, Squid Game always had that incredible look, right? The bright, childlike sets mixed with just horrific violence. Sounds like that signature style is definitely still there in season 3. And the music, the sound design, really ramps up the tension.
For sure. But, digging into those production notes, it threw up something really interesting about a couple of the main criticisms. The CGI baby that a lot of people found stiff and distracting, and the VIP dialogue, which many called wooden, even cringe-worthy.
Yeah, I saw those comments popping up a lot.
Well, the notes suggest there might have been some deliberate artistic intention there, a polarizing one maybe, but still, intent.
Wait, so you mean they meant for it to be like that, not just like a technical fumble?
Potentially. With the VIPs, the idea apparently was to make their dialogue sound deliberately stilted, artificial, almost like bad actors in a play, to really underline how detached they are, how dehumanized their whole perspective is. Now, did it work? Critics mostly said no, it just felt clumpy. But there was a thought process. And the CGI, baby. Well, sources suggest there were some practical effect plans initially, but logistical issues forced the CGI route late in the game. But even then, the aim seems to have been something jarring, unsettling, to maybe make you question the very nature of life and death in these artificial games. It's definitely a risky choice. And clearly, it didn't land well for everyone. It kind of shows how artistic goals don't always connect with how the audience experiences it, you know?
Wow, okay. That is an aha moment. Knowing there might have been a reason behind those things. It definitely makes you think differently about them. So how did all this affect the reception overall? Rotten Tomatoes has critics pretty positive, like 81, 83%. But then you look at the audience scores, and yeah, it seems much more divided.
That split is really telling. It highlights how different people wanted different things from this final season. You have viewers who really valued that deeper dive, that introspection. They saw it as a fitting, mature end, aligned with the critics mostly. But then you have others saying, very clearly, we missed the intensity, the thrill of season 1.
Right. And looking at specific audience comments really drives that home. Someone praised it. Final installment wraps up the storyline but leaves room for future. Themes explored include ambiguous fate of Gi-hun, rich with hidden messages.
Right.
Another called the finale most brutal yet.
Yeah.
Traumatizing yet epic. High praise indeed.
But then, flip side, you get comments like, poor CGI, baby, unrealistic and distracting. Right back to what we were just talking about. And another one, VIP dialogue clunky, anticlimactic storyline. So those specific elements, intended or not, definitely stuck in some people's craw.
Yeah, so it runs the gamut, from people calling it grade A++++ television to others saying it was, well, the worst season. It just goes to show how tough it is to wrap up something this huge, this beloved. Okay, now, major spoiler warning coming up here for anyone listening who hasn't finished season 3. Seriously, skip ahead if you need to, because this ending, it's definitely polarizing. Sources call it rich with symbolism, good character closure, but divisive in how it gets there.
And the biggest point of division, the thing everyone's talking about, is Gi-hun's fate, his final act. He sacrifices himself for an infant who ends up being the winner. And that act, wow, it has sparked so much debate online about the message, about capitalism, dignity, the cost of survival. It really forces you to reevaluate the whole series, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And yet, even with that seemingly definitive ending for Gi-hun, the door isn't completely shut, is it? Our sources mention some threads left hanging, a new recruiter is introduced, there are hints about potential spin-offs, maybe even a Hollywood cameo mentioned somewhere. It definitely suggests the Squid Game universe isn't necessarily over. So you get this incredibly powerful, tragic end for Gi-hun's specific story, but maybe not for the franchise itself.
Yeah.
So after all that, the big question for you listening right now, should you watch Squid Game Season 3?
I'd say, yeah, absolutely. If you're someone who appreciates that psychological depth we talked about, if you value moral complexity, character arcs over just pure adrenaline, this season really delivers on that front. It's a character-focused conclusion.
Right, but maybe give it a miss, or at least, temper your expectations.
Yeah.
If what you're really hoping for is just season 1 again, that raw thrill, the sharp social satire, because the tone is different, it's more somber, more introspective, that's a deliberate shift, and it changes the whole feel. So to wrap it all up, Squid Game 3 offers this dark, emotional finale. It's bold, definitely, maybe imperfect. You've got amazing performances, real moral weight, but also, some pacing issues noted by critics. Those polarizing creative choices like the baby and the VIPs, even knowing the intent behind them now. And as we saw, really mixed reactions from you, the fans.
Yeah, but love it or hate it, you can't deny it's a huge cultural event, right? It cements Squid Game's place in TV history. It kept people talking, thinking, arguing. It provoked.
It really did. And maybe that's the final thought to leave you with after this deep dive. Beyond the games, beyond the shocks, what is this final season really asking us? About survival, about dignity, about the choices we make inside systems that are designed, baby, to break our humanity. How does Gi-hun's final sacrifice land for you now, knowing all these layers of intent and reaction? Something to chew on,